You're now rocking with DJ Free Leonard.
Devastating. Universal. DJ what? Free Leonard Peltier. Free our political prisoners. FBI agents. Yeah, seems like fact.
We're doing this one 37 years to the day. Leonard Peltier.
You're now rocking with DJ Free Leonard.
Yeah, man. Political prisoner. Lockdown 36 years.
Leonard Peltier is a prisoner of war, a political prisoner, incarcerated for a crime he did not commit by a government that has no intention of ever finding out the reality behind what happened. Because the reality is not something it wants to deal with.
DJ Free Leonard, a native rights hip-hop pioneer from Oakland.
Devastating.
Yeah, you're my selector. You over there, some talk.
DJ Free Leonard, a.k.a. Broken Treaty Poet, is an indigenous artist using hip-hop as a tool for freedom.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hard Knock Radio, Davey D hanging out with you this afternoon. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day. I know that on the calendar it says Columbus Day, but many people around this country and around the world reject that notion of a colonizer, a rapist, or a brutalizer, somebody who was lost on his way to India and wound up here in what was called the New World, and the rest is sordid history. As we saw people come over here and pillage the land, pillage the people. So we recognize the sovereignty and the humanness of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Joining us on this Indigenous Peoples Day is DJ Free Leonard. He is the first cousin to longtime political prisoner Leonard Peltier, who was part of the American Indian movement better known as AIM. And so we figured let's dig deep into Indigenous Peoples Day, and let's look at the ongoing struggles that many have waged to correct some brutal wrongs. So welcome to the show, Aaron, DJ Free Leonard. And how things going, man? What goes on through your mind on a day like today?
Right on, Davey D. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the platform to get the word out about Leonard Peltier and Indigenous people in general. And this day is a historical day, known as many people as Columbus Day. But the city of Berkeley, actually where KPFA is located, was the first city to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day. And I think, in fact, it's actually Indigenous Resistance Day, a little step ahead with the resistance part. But in many parts of the North America, which is known as Turtle Island, the day has been changed, and there's many activists and community groups that have pushed to change the name of this day so that the historical significance of the genocide that Christopher Columbus represents is rectified, and that the future generations of people can have a better understanding of what this day is really about. And it's a day of genocide, and it's a day of imperialism, of the state coming and destroying the communities and the people way of living and way of thinking.
Right. There's a radio noise in the background. Is that you or me?
A radio noise?
Yeah. Hearing like some sort of buzz, and I'm trying to see where that's coming from. Yeah. It's not there as much anymore. There you go. Let me ask you this. You mentioned a lot, and the words that you say are powerful. Do you think people really get that? Or do you feel that people just kind of do what is kind of expected or what might be politically correct? Yeah, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. Yeah, I hear you. But then go back to business as usual.
Well, a good analogy to explain my perspective on that would be to look at something like such as a spear, or an object, and how an object can be, or a cylinder, for example, how a cylinder is different shapes depending on the perspective. So the perspectives that were taught in school, the colonial schools, and that are mainly, you know, um, spread throughout the educational system at a very young age, that pretty much sets the narrative that a lot of people come to understand Indigenous people by. And to change that narrative would be probably the most effective thing we could do. So every this time of month from today on, going towards National Day and Mourning, which is known as Thanksgiving, I get invited to many schools to speak. And so as we progress and learn more in the community and in life, the schools keep teaching the same rhetoric and the same information that has been limiting our perspective from being known. So, and then not to mention the stereotypes that are perpetuated in society, and also backed up by major corporations such as the Washington Redskins, whose name recently was changed to the Washington Football Team because of the pressure by the corporations, the stockholders in that football franchise, saying that basically it's popular opinion. It's been popular opinion that this is a racist. Washington Redskins franchise name is a racist mascot and name that's not fair, and people aren't going to want to support this team and buy our merchandise. So that pressure that the stockholders put on the franchise finally over changed the name after decades and decades of lawsuits and public pressure. It will finally change. But so basically, these things that are perpetuated in society, as many college football teams, and even this month of being Halloween, how people will dress up, they'll sell costumes as people being dressing up as Native people, and it's a very offensive thing to many people. And so I what I started off saying is I think that we all have our own perspective. It's just that the dominant narrative that's perpetuated on the mainstream is very difficult to change.
Right.
And usually it takes a small group of activists working based on popular opinion to change the actual legal precedent that will, shape the future.
Appreciate that. Let me ask you this. We started off by saying that your cousin is Leonard Peltier, founding
Yes.
member of the American Indian Movement, and has been incarcerated for over 40 years. It's about 40 years now? 40 some odd,
44 years.
40,
Yeah.
44 years. What do we need to know about Leonard Peltier? Can you give us a little Leonard Peltier 101 on this Indigenous Peoples Day?
Yes, indeed. Well, just the most important thing that I've learned personally, just to set up the context, is that we must be bicentennial, meaning that we have to take what's going on today in society and relate it to what's gone on in history. And the history of what happened, it really dates back over 500 years. But let's just take it back within the last 150 years. And in 1890, there was a Wounded Knee massacre, as hundreds of unarmed men, women, and children were practicing the sacred ghost dance. That's an indigenous ceremony, and they were massacred by the cavalry. And Sitting Bull was part of that group of indigenous people, and that Wounded Knee massacre happened, in the South Dakota area, and so that was actually June 26th, 1890. So in 1973 to 1976, in the South Dakota region, it was known as the Reign of Terror. And on June 25th, 1975, the incident at Ogawa happened, and that was a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Let's go back a little. Let's go back. Why was it called the Reign of Terror?
I'm sorry. The Reign
yeah.
of Terror was it started off the occupation of Wounded Knee. So the American Indian movement occupied the historical site of that massacre that I just explained, and it started with that occupation, and this was to bring overall awareness to the violence that was going on the reservation and going on sovereign land. And so what was really going on that we learned through the Freedom of Information Act years later is that there was a land transfer going on where um, the energy deposits and the land were being given to 55 multinational energy corporations. And so the government basically hired a goon squad known as the Guardians of the Ogawa Nation, as the acronym. And the goon squad was terrorizing the Pine Ridge residents, and this whole tragic situation led to the deaths of over 61 American Indian Movement members within this three year period known as the Reign of Terror, which started with the occupation of Wounded Knee and ended with a shootout at the incident at Ogawa, in which two FBI agents were killed and a native man by the name of Joe Stunts was killed by a sniper as they had a large paramilitary buildup around the reservation and raided the reservation on a hot day in the middle of the summer. And Leonard Peltier, prior to this, was asked to go to the Pine Ridge Reservation to help secure order and defend the people as he joined the American Indian movement from the Pacific Northwest, where he had an auto repair shop and he held meetings, 12-step meetings for people recovering and doing sobriety. And he left his everyday life to go to Pine Ridge to help with other American Indian movement members. And they patterned themselves off the Black Panther Party for self-defense, and they were just defending the community and trying to bring some sort of security to the residents on Pine Ridge. And so during this raid, known as the incident in Ogawa, there was a shootout, and Leonard Peltier was falsely convicted and used as an scapegoat to put the blame on him, opposed to letting the people know what was going on with the Reign of Terror.
Wow. And so here he is, a political prisoner for 44 years. How has this case gone? And do you get any hope, considering it was just this week? We talked about the release of Jalil Montequin, that just got out after doing 49 years. We had Herman Bell get released last year. But it's far and few in between. There's still many that languish behind these walls. Do you feel that people remember Leonard Peltier and that they still keep up the fight?
Yes, Leonard's become a symbol of indigenous resistance and an icon of the Native movement because his case exemplifies what indigenous people have to go through every day by being marginalized and being their stories not being covered and no attention going to what's going on. And I still have hope every day. That's mainly because I created a platform as myself as an artist to advocate. And good news is that Leonard's lawyer has been meeting at the prison reform meetings at the White House. And I'm not necessarily advocate, or I don't favor the president, but I definitely do know that he has the power to do something. And right. So you kind of gotta, with all the presidents that have this case has come across their attention, you got to have some kind of hope that with activity he's had in regards to releasing people, that Leonard could possibly be one of them. And Leonard's lawyer recently on the new Leonard podcast, Leonard's lawyer laid out his plan to how he's going to present this case to the president and hope for a pardon.
Right. Why didn't Obama make moves on that? I'm sure that there was hope and advocacy to approach Barack Obama, who many felt should have been more, open.
Yes. Well, Obama, I don't know the exact specifics as why he didn't issue a pardon, but definitely, it just goes on your perspective of how you see the the ruling class and a lot of class contradictions that where they're worried about their books coming out. They're worried about there's a lot of self-interest that prevent um, things from happening just because if there's not enough public pressure and people aren't really talking about it, then they could just go about their business and not have to address the issue. So actually the people actually having to make this something that comes just like with any issue that we face in the community. If nobody really does the work to not saying nobody did, because a lot of people were pushing very hard for a pardon, but it would take a mass movement um, of this magnitude. And also, to be honest, my personal opinion is that there's hundreds of documents pertaining to this case that were held as reasons of national security, and that whole national security issue of what the American Indian movement was in the 70s has somewhat changed. So that's it's there's a lot of politics and issues pertaining to the national security of releasing Leonard would expose so much injustice and so much corruption that was done. It's,
Right.
you don't really want to they don't really want to like give it any attention. If you kind of keep it silent, and then it's just like, well, those are just crazy people trying to uh,
Right.
stir up noise. But it would expose a lot of injustice that's gone on, and unfortunately, that would hold them. Fortunately for the people, that would hold them accountability. But that's something we don't really ever see is politicians and presidents taking accountability for their predecessors and rectifying these wrongs and offering reconciliation to First Nations has been a historical thing that they just don't do. So
No, I hear you on that. Do you think the battle around Standing Rock helped bring additional attention and underscore some of these salient points that you raised, or did it result in people maybe doubling down those protests around I guess they're trying to, or they will, build that pipeline, but that was a massive gathering that went on for more than a year. Uh, do you think that helped open up people's eyes and ears?
definitely the people getting out in the streets and people doing what they can online definitely raises awareness and heightens the contradictions, and that definitely is needed for change to happen. We have to go an extra step and get petition signatures and lobby Congress and try to use checks and balances to stop, um, to try to have enough congressmen and senators to uh, to veto the president's decision. And recently, the a lot of the court hearings and the litigation that's gone on around Standing Rock is that they're having a hard time getting all their permits approved
Mhm.
because of that public pressure. So, it's just actually that pressure is that public attention and pressure is needed. Just having to go a step further and to keep it going and to not give up just because it's not safe to talk about anymore and it feels like it's not the popular opinion when you can see by the number of people that turned out to Standing Rock and the attention online that was given and even in the mainstream media that it was popular opinion that this is an injustice and sacred burial grounds such as the ones we have at Glen Cove in the Emeryville shopping area, and also, excuse me, the Shell Mound
Shell Mound, yeah.
in Emeryville, and Glen Cove is in Vallejo, which there was a huge protest that was a part of years ago, and they told us, yeah, we're not going to build this park and bathrooms over your burial ground. And then once everyone stopped occupying the area, then they went ahead and built it anyways. So
Wow.
it's always been a thing of accountability, and the basic premise of a broken treaty is a broken agreement and a broken promise. So, integrity and morals are something that Indigenous people hold high, and that's something that hasn't ever really been, um, clarified. Is that are they going to keep their promises and not break treaties and not break promises of actually going to help the people, which they're supposed to be doing.
If you're just tuning in, that's the voice of DJ Free Leonard talking about Indigenous Peoples Day, and also talking about his project. He mentioned earlier that he has a platform, and he's been using that platform for a good 10, 12 years to bring attention not only to Indigenous people's rights, but his first cousin, Leonard Peltier. In 2010, he did, I guess it was like a mixtape, but I remember, I still have it, the Freedom Campaign, and it had everybody on it from 2Mex to our own T-Cash, Dilated Peoples was on the Immortal Technique, and then you did a documentary, called Free 'Em All, and then more recently you have some new music which we want to talk about, or which we want to listen to. Talk a little bit about your foray as an artist, and how important has it been to bring cultural expression to these political arenas?
Well, thank you. Hip hop is a very powerful art form and tool for expression to let people. The way it started in the '80s was a political thing, and to get the word out about issues going on. And as hip hop progressed, it actually was co-opted by corporations and the ruling class that had a different agenda of what they wanted to use hip hop to promote and to its purpose be. So when I started putting out projects, it was basically to use native hip hop to explain to people, that don't even understand there are native, understand what a sovereignty is, or what a tribe is, or what these things are. It was a way to use hip hop as a way, to contribute to freedom campaigns and to cultural movements. And it's been an honor to be able to work with so many different artists of all different backgrounds.
I mean, you got a long list, Wu-Tang.
Dirty Bastard,
yeah. Eazy-E's son, Pep Love, of course, from here. Yes. ODB from Wu-Tang, Living Legends. I didn't know you did something with Tom Morello.
Working on something right now with Tom Morello. Actually,
okay.
Leonard Peltier project, where I have some of Leonard's spoken word we're going to put to music, and Tom has been very kind to help contribute some guitar riffs. Putting into music. Yeah.
Why don't we listen to a song? I'm going to pull out. We played something earlier from the first album, but I want to play something from the new stuff. Why don't we play the song "Warriors"?
Gosh, the most recent version I sent you a few minutes ago.
Yeah, which one is that? Let me just make sure.
I sent you an email like 20 minutes ago with the correct version.
Oh, okay. Is this the one with Umar bin Hassan, or is this a different one?
Oh no, that one's To Become Human. That one's the same. That one is in the.
Bicentennial Warriors. That's what we're talking about.
Yes, that record. There's an updated version that I just emailed you before we started.
Okay. Well, why don't we check it out? Okay. We're gonna check out Bicentennial Warriors by DJ Free Leonard.
Sometimes you have to tell others to F off. Sorry elders for sounding inappropriate, but corporate ruling class men been trying to appropriate my clenched fist hand. Never apologetic because how it is now. Multifaceted logic. Who stops to look fascinated? Been on a fast since how fast toxins expelled to unheal the system from healing. Limited not only to chemicals entailed. We are the tale of the bicentennial, documenting how us natives are exploring our current role as it relates in history. We the tale of the bicentennial, documenting on how us natives are exploring our current role as it relates to history. History.
Sometimes you gotta tell others to F off, back to where we left off. It ain't no mystery, where you relate in history, where you stand, we giving too much power to one damn man. Sometimes you tell others to F off, back to where we left off. It ain't
We're back here, Davey D, Hard Knock Radio, checking out new music from DJ Free Leonard on this Indigenous Peoples Day. It is the updated version of Bicentennial Warriors. When's the full project going to come out? Because I've heard bits and pieces.
Yes, well, two projects are dropping in November, which is the 10-year anniversary of Free Leonard Peltier hip-hop's contribution to the Freedom Campaign. It'll be exactly 10 years since that release. And I have a project called Who is Leonard Peltier, which is a project that has all songs and interviews about Leonard Peltier to help educate about him. And then I have another project that's more of my spoken word and the different cultural messages that I put out. And those will be both dropping on National Day of Mourning, known as Thanksgiving.
Okay. You got your chops as a spoken word artist. But did you ever feel a need to really go into full-blown MCing, or you just kind of stayed in the lane of spoken word?
Well, MCing is originally it's a very
some people separate the two.
Yeah, I see it just depending on the record and depending on the platform. And spoken word artists have a hard time getting out because music is more sometimes generated around the party scene. And so I've progressed to doing records like the one with Razkaz, where I'm rapping on that record. And as far as spoken word, like what I did with To Become Human with Umar bin Hassan of the Last Poets, that was more of a spoken word thing. And I like to just try different styles and different cadences on different records. I feel like when you're your own independent artist and you don't have to worry about being told what you have to make, you just make what you want and what feels right. And you start seeing, well, wow, the people that I share these records for, wow, I'm getting such a good response. Let me try this again, and with this type of style. So I kind of just it just varies which type of style that I do. And the more that you practice something, the better, the more range you have.
Real talk. Why don't we play To Become Human?
Mestizo eyes, dark and secret, full of pain and laughter at the same time, lending their passions to our souls, hoping and praying we remember what we learned to become human in the beginning. The truth of so many movements, so many influences in our minds, our daggers so close to your heart, but still you act superior. Fuck Taco Bell and running for the border. The land was ours, it will always be ours. We will reclaim it inch by inch, poem by poem. We are not trespassing, we are only coming home to kiss our ancestors' graves, to close their eyes, to touch their dreams, suspended in progress and mass murder. We keep believing in love and kindness to our friends, to our enemies, but these values lose us. These few pennies and dimes degenerate our sensitivity. Our mother awakens us from a dreadful sleep. She cannot feed us the rocks and pebbles that spout from the soil. She cannot kiss us with lips protruding with disease and pollution. She cannot hold us with arms burdened by exploitation. But still we see our future in her images and symbols, in the beauty of her tapestries, in the sounds of horns and guitars and dancing in the street, in cool breezes kissing desert sands, in the romance of street people sincerely pleading, take your time with the dreams, for this is for the people. Take your time with the music, for this is for the people. Take your time with the revolution, for this is for the people. Aho!
Free 'em all! In this moment, here's a notice, combining our two heroic components to be known as the last broken treaty poets, who knew so much prosperity would come from solidarity. Before hip-hop's debut, it was LP's popularity who certainly paved the way. The lyrical gurus known to spiritually overthrow evil each word written with detail for what the future would entail. Good to prevail over all entitlement of the establishment. The land back to natives, relative women, men, and children. Free now to set sail from shores in any four sacred directions. Using the cosmic intersections to guide eclectic connections. Transformed through an electric microphone with a chrome handle. Held by only the ones who are willing and able to tell a tale. Without fables to enable the inner sitting bull within.
Hey Leonard, happy birthday, brother. You might not be able to get pardoned, but you're free on the inside, brother. You got the spiritual waves connected to you, brother. And you're making us feel free, whether we're in the iron house or not, because you make it happen for the people. You show what we can do, or no matter what circumstances or where we're at in our lives, you know. And we appreciate that in a good way. And many more birthdays for you. Happy birthday. Oh.
Okay, what was it like working with Umar bin Hassan from the Last Poets?
It was an honor. We went to the grill over in Emeryville and recorded that record. It was an honor to chop it up with him. He had very kind words to say about me and about everything that I've been working on. And it was such a great experience. He's so knowledgeable, and the Last Poets are known as the godfathers of hip hop, that it really paved the way for so much music to come out since then, that they're so popular overseas. And it was such an honor to work with him. He's such a good guy, and we really had a good time just joking around and talking about the history.
Did you learn anything from him? You know, I mean, as an artist yourself, were there any jewels that you picked up from him that you said, you know, I'm going to incorporate this in my repertoire of presentation now?
Yeah, you know, the way he just carries himself and like as an elder, you know, poet in the community is just something I really look up to and just admire, that he's been around for so long, but he still believes in what he's saying in his music, where I haven't really seen anyone else doing what he's doing. And so that's just inspirational just in that. And he did give me some tips when I was recording my verse, when we were recording together, and we worked on the record, and we actually added some more elements to the record while we're in the studio, like a native chant and a native drum.
Okay.
But yeah, just the overall, just a confirmation that I'm doing the right things. It was really, I had dreamed of working with him for many years prior to actually reaching out to him. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, our indigenous brothers and sisters, as well as us as Africans, you know, the drum is such a sacred, you know, I hate to say instrument, it's more than an instrument. You know, talk about the significance, because, you know, as far as I know, that I've always seen the drum as a communication tool, as a healing apparatus, as a community gathering, you know, instrument. You know, how have you seen the drum? And, you know, and that's what I was thinking when I was like, wow, you're in the booth with folks who use that drum as their primary thing. So, you know, that's what I was wondering, if he gave you some tips with that. And you said he did, you know.
Yes. You know, the drum is known as, a good way to think of a drum is the heartbeat of the earth. Mm-hmm. So the rhythms and the vibrations that are being produced all around us are really exemplified in the sound of a drum. And it's basically how to sequence that and how to make that basically bring out a lot of feelings and emotions that are actually, you know, as a lot of artists say, are therapy. So that drum has always been a sacred drum that was originally used by natives hunting sacred buffalo. They would use the buffalo, the hive, to create the drum, to put over some wood and tighten and stretch it out, and then have some drumsticks and create that and do the chanting. Is brings us in harmony and brings us in sync with the frequencies of the world, which is these days people are starting to understand that, you know, it's all about harmony, and it's all about how we can relate to each other in different, fashions, and it's a very powerful thing. I
Right.
wish I knew how to play the drums.
I hear that. What's the name of the album when it finally drops, the full album?
Well, I'm still deciding on two different names, and one of them actually, I was thinking about flood the streets with poetry.
Okay.
Yeah.
People might not, you think they'll get where you're coming from on it?
Well, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because, yeah, just the way that just that the term "flood the streets" has been
Right.
identified. Yeah, with the negative, with the biggest problem going on in the community is the whole, especially on the reservation, is drug addiction, and I'm saying let's flood it with poetry instead. So
I like that. The COVID situation has definitely hit pretty deep in some of the different peoples, nations. In particular the Navajo. Your thoughts on just the disproportionate impact of COVID.
well, condolences to everyone who's lost a life or has been affected by this pandemic. At first, it didn't seem real, and after a few months, it was like, wait, this thing is real. What are we going to do? And at this point, it's almost like civil disobedience is necessary, because there's the people that are in charge and in control aren't taking as much accountability once again as they need to be to actually bring in more solutions, because so many people are out of work and so many people are in very dire situations that they don't have any help. And I know a few different people that are actually working on the Navajo reservation, and that situation is actually somewhat improved to where it started off at. But that's a lot of hard work going on by just private people, private entities going down there and helping the reservation however they can, because the Navajo reservation, there's 40,000 people on that res, and they don't even have clean running water.
Right.
So let alone having to deal with this COVID. It's a very sad historical thing that's gone on with Indigenous people, and it's kind of like if somebody's this analogy may sound weird, but if somebody's drowning, they don't really have time to strike a pose and look and see how it looks. About
Right.
They're as Indigenous people were suffering, and as
Just trying to survive.
we're trying to survive, and so there's the idea that we have to strike a pose for everything, especially in this day of Instagram, and make everything so picture perfect, where it's like, well, these issues are far from that, and trying to put too much emphasis on how everything looks, well, then a lot of people don't want to get involved, because, well, they're like, well, how does that make me look? And
Right.
that's the last thing. Like I said, if we're drowning, last thing we should be worried about just getting to safety, opposed to how does everything look. Yeah.
Right. Real talk. I want to come back to Leonard Peltier in his case, and I love this song you did with Razkaz. Freedom. Let's talk a little bit about that. First, how has Leonard Peltier responded to your work? Has he heard any of the material?
Yes. Well, when I started out in that 2010, I received a letter from Leonard, and he stated that he was very proud of the work that I was doing with nobody asking me to.
Right.
And a lot of these relationships that if not all of them, I've sent hundreds of emails to artists again and again over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, and developed these connections myself. And he was very proud that I was doing all this work with no one asking, once again. And he's been very supportive, and he's asked me to do other ways to help his board of advisors and his defense committee. And I just always try to offer moral support
Right.
to my family members that work on his case. I try to, being Indigenous really means maturity and unity. So just getting, making sure that I got my stuff together, and then
Right.
I can help our family and also help him by just more than just doing songs, but actually just taking the time to write him a letter, taking the time to just communicate and let him know what's going on out here. So
Yeah, that's very important. Because hip hop is so powerful and you've established a reputation, I was wondering, you know, do they ever huddle up with you and say, look, we're trying to raise these points. If we can put this out, maybe this can help the case. Or, there might be new information that has emerged that we didn't know when some of when some of this stuff went down. And so, I guess, do you see yourself as strictly an artist, who's like, I'm motivated, I'm inspired, let me go in this direction? Or are you, in the words of W.E.D. Du Bois, propagandist, unapologetic, like, hey, man, I'm definitely trying to change the narrative. We're going to change the narrative, and here's the information that we want to put out there to help us achieve that end.
yeah,
Because, W.D. Du Bois, for people who don't know, says, all artists, at least black artists, have a responsibility to be propagandists with their art.
yeah. Well, it's a very important factor to keep information coming out and to put it in a way that people can relate to, that keeps up with all these trends that go on. And there's a new Leonard podcast out right now that's been going for about 7 or 8 weeks, and I'll actually be featured on the next episode this Thursday. It's called Leonard Political Prisoner, and it's part of all this wave of new podcasts that spread information that we didn't have before. In free speech, KPFA was really the only platform where you could get information out to people, and but now there's these podcasts, and so utilizing those as well, and keeping a balance between the work and the community. And sometimes people ask me, well, how can I get involved? And that's honestly, well, how do you feel comfortable getting involved? What kind of skills and talents can you work on or can you develop that can be impactful? And for me, it was starting out doing events at La Peña Cultural Center in Berkeley, and East Side Arts Alliance, and just figuring out, well, how can I use this Facebook thing to bring people to my event? And I'll speak, and then I'll invite different people to speak. And then brought a lot of friends that were performing, and hey, let me try to go. I went over to Soundwave Studios in West Oakland and just started rehearsing every day and just practicing, just performing by myself. And they're like, who is this guy who keeps coming in here every day by himself? He's doing a Sitting Bull song over and over. And I just, take it upon myself to develop what I need to do, skills that I need that would help get the message across. But then also, too, is balancing it out with doing actual work, being effective with actually participating in what's going on in the other major issues in the community. And also, to be honest with you, just every day that I go out into society, I have flyers with me, I have different information brochures, and just always to share and spread the message. Because like the very first thing we started talking about was the perspective thing, and a lot of people, they just don't know the right people that will put them in the mix and the loop of things. And for me, I had to email so many artists so many different times to this day and not get a response. That's the way I created my platform is by doing that. But if I didn't do that, I probably would have never worked with anybody, because I don't really, honestly, I'm not to take away from anybody, but nobody's really ever reached out to me.
Right. No, I hear you, but that's hip hop. Creating a space where there ain't, It doesn't come on a silver spoon. Well, this song by with you and Razkaz is incredible. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was it like working with Razkaz, who is, definitely has earned his stripes over the years.
Yes. Yeah, Razkaz is an amazing lyricist. He's known for these historical records of breaking down ancient history, and I'm actually realizing more recently in the past few months, it's like, wow, I've reached out to so many artists, but there's still so many artists that I haven't reached out to. Mm-hmm. So Razkaz was one of them that for some reason I just didn't just take that simple step and find the email or contact on social media and just try to initiate some sort of conversation or dialogue And sometimes we, I guess with anything in life, especially in the days of people running their own businesses these days, is that we think of something, but actually following through and doing it. And so working with Razgaz, he like the verse that he did on freedom, it's like it was so powerful because it was just like a complete political summation in 16 bars.
Yeah,
that covers everything top to bottom. That I've been working on memorizing that verse myself, so I can perform it because as to pay homage to what he wrote and he articulates things so well.
Yeah, I think people take for granted, how difficult it is to get accurate information, make it funky, deliver it well, and and do it in such a way that people can remember it. Summarizing 16 bars, somebody's life or political situation is not the easiest. You guys did it well. Dead Prez really does that well. Immortal Techniques, those are some of the groups that come to mind that really do that. And I think we hear them so much that we take it for granted until you have to actually write a song and do it in 16 bars and realize, that's not easy. To get a cadence, to get a rhyme, to make it sound saucy and all that. So this was a hell of a song.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So, we're going to play this and we're going to get ready to let you go on this Indigenous Peoples Day. Anything that you want to let people know, DJ Free Leonard, how to get a hold of you, what to follow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, just very briefly, if you're interested in this, I would say there's 4 subcategories of people that I would consider as being Indigenous, and that's people that racially identify with Indigenous culture, and people that culturally identify, people that are actually part of a tribe or may have a family member part of a tribe, and people that are just have like a social emotional attachment to Indigenous people. So a lot of people fall into one of those categories, and the thing about categories and the whole way we're colonized is basically the methodology of a reductionism, and that's basically a byproduct of stereotyping. And so we're taught to figure something out. We're taught to divide it, subdivide it, until we really don't have anything left. So you got to be very aware of that's what goes on in the narrative that the mass media pushes and the government pushes, is to keep dividing everything until we don't have anything left. Or I actually learned on KPFA one afternoon is that the causes are like, if you fight for, we may be fighting to free Leonard, but then there's another issue that we don't agree upon, then we're not fighting to free Leonard anymore. So even causes and movements are actually subdivided into so many smaller parts. It's hard to agree on what we originally set out to do. And that reductionism, I feel like, is it is in fact a byproduct of stereotyping. It's, stereotyping is obviously racism, and that racism is needed for capitalism. So I think those are interesting things to kind of be aware of, that don't even when it comes to our own mental health and our own well-being, is not to reduce and marginalize ourselves. And we got to stop doing it to each other, because if you really give people the time of day to get to know them, there really are so many great people out there. And I always identify the Free Leonard movement with the people that I've met in the community that have been so loving and supporting to the work that's being done. And I've tried to just ignore the stuff, the propaganda that's been put out to criminalize and marginalize Leonard. And I've tried to really just focus on just the goodness of people. And I'm on all digital platforms under DJ Free Leonard, and I guess these days most people are using Instagram as DJ Free Leonard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it. We're going to go out with this song. Brother, thank you very much for hanging with us. We're going to take a break here on Hard Knock Radio. We'll be right back.
Freedom!
Lakota. Mass murder in South Dakota, white militia at Pine Ridge, ran 61 Native Americans dead. Nobody cared about it, people protested. Another broken deal, another broken treaty, another land steal. So energy companies keep their hands filled. Break resources, chant and drill, baby drill. Crack book resource, they kill, baby kill. Who's the hero when the villain's the Navy SEAL? Took a man to take a stand and take aim. American Indian movement defended his rights in 75. Citizens shouted out with the FBI. 2 officers died, prosecution lied. Sentenced to life, even Barack Obama denied. Appeals for clemency, beaten in prison and mistreated. Parole hearing in July 2024, he'll be 79. Stand with an innocent man, rally and cry, say free Leonard. Free Leonard! Can't unite when all this hate and divide. Religious symbols spelling coexist. When you see your brother, let me see you pump your fists and scream. Freedom!
Of a summation. As I observe some ravens, it occurs to me how my mom was born on a reservation, originally a place of incarceration, not a palace or tourist destination. At the intersection of personal memories and social history, distracted by a pop culture mentality, attractive actresses or current events, but I need rapid ways to curate rent. They said to me your cause is outrageous, fortunately fighting for unjust laws contagious. Some tried for extortion and freeloading, while the real want exoneration, so Leonard free. While racism still is the reason, Leonard in prison. Don't be prejudiced, be quick to test the fundamentalist. No matter how it sounds, the truth is always profound. These days it's assimilation via assimilation, sure to give you a stimulation and the elimination of your traditional metaphysical thoughts. Cause remember, Leonard came through for the poor and oppressed, to address the civil unrest. Most will never guess, even the prosecutor of his trial asked for a pardon him from jail. Don't overlook the subjectiveness, when the system is the real symptom. The real symptom, the system.